if the boy and girl met, anniversary of the meeting, because they decided to stay together, going steady, most unsteady. It's going steady. So every month of that day is celebrated. What is the celebration? So more the celebration, less the relationship. That's why we are aping the West. I'm not saying there's such wonderful qualities in the West. That we've left it. All the stupid things or silly things we're picking up because it's easy. And we feel very great about it. I'm not criticizing. If it helps you, fine. But here he's saying, na atimanita. If you massage the ego, it's very interesting. German thinker tells us what the symbiotic relationship is. When you massage the partner's ego, my partner massages your ego, and that is what you call a good relationship. It's a tension. Whole life is a tension. And it's not Bhagavad Gita. Here you are. If a person loves only one other person and is indifferent to all others, they call it fallen in love. That's what he's talking about. His love is not love but a symbiotic attachment or an enlarged egotism. Eric Fromm, German philosopher. So it's not only Bhagavad Gita. It is a fact. If you promote your partner or your spouse, the ego part of it, it's just the ego massage. I put you on top, you put me on top. The day one person stops, there's problem in the relationship. And there's tension. Because you have to remember certain things. You cannot forget. You're worried. It's not a comfortable relationship. And this is something that we've imported from the West. It's not something that we do in this country. It's not our culture. It's alien to us, yet we follow it and then we suffer. So here he says, if you want to be divine, you got to reduce and dissolve the ego. There's no self-importance. So even if your spouse doesn't understand, your partner doesn't understand and promotes your ego, you say, I know it's my birthday, you don't have to go overboard. Okay? Take it easy. Alright, you celebrate. Instead of saying, yes, you feel high when the person gives you so much importance. You can help the other person dissolve the ego. If you know the value of this divine quality, it's setting the right direction. Now we get on to today's portion, verse number 4, where he talks about the demoniac qualities.
Dambhodharpabhimanascha krodhah parushyameva cha ajnanam chabhijatasya parthasarathy
6 qualities of demoniac. What are they? Ostentation, dambaha, arrogance, darpaha, self-conceit, abhimanaha, anger, krodha, harshness, also harshness, parushyam, and ignorance, ajnanam, belong, O Partha, to one born of demoniac nature. So what are they? Dambaha. Dambaha is a falsely stimulated value. You falsely stimulate value. It could be value, it could be show of wealth, show of renunciation. See, I told you yesterday, with due respect to people who are following vows, you take a vow and you say for 40 days I'm going to maintain this vow, which is okay. But there is a kind of stimulated virtue. See, you just changed your clothes, that's all you did. The same person with the same negativity, the same anger, the same hatred, the same habits, wrong habits, everything is same, just clothes have changed. So don't take it literally. You're just following a discipline for 40 days. You keep yourself there. But if you imagine you have become spiritual and you expect, people expect to be respected at that time. It's a falsely stimulated virtue. That is damba. Not only that, show of wealth. Typical example is the Indian weddings, or what it has become today, Indian wedding. And people are getting into loans to perform weddings. It's a falsely stimulated virtue. You don't have that money, then why do you show it? No, but what will the boys think? Boys' side think? What will the girls' side think? For all these opinions, you're putting on a false show, and you are in tension because you have to pay the bills. But we won't get a good boy. What is the assurance that the marriage will continue? What is the assurance? You live within your means, you're peaceful. But you want to put yourself on a higher pedestal where you don't belong. It's torture, mental torture. Yet you will do it because it's a demoniac quality. That's all we're saying. It's up to you, it's your life. So, whether it's renunciation or show of wealth, and another very strange thing I see is every bride and bridegroom want to pose as hero and heroine. And the beautiful girls put up all sorts of paint on their face. They don't look real. Yet you will do it. You will do it. And everybody appreciates it. Whether they appreciate it or not. But what are you doing? It's a false presentation of what you are not. Next day you see the person, is it the same person I married? The boy is worried. It's a false representation. Same thing, display of love. It's not true. You try to welcome people. You're not welcoming them. Inwardly you hate people. And between husband and wife they decide this. Yesterday also we were talking. Why did this fellow, why did you invite this fellow? Oh, come. You say all that, but you don't mean it. So that is what he means, dambaha. Dambaha is a false representation. It could be even religious acts, renunciation, professing knowledge where you don't have it. Just be yourself. You don't understand what another person is saying, you pardon yourself and say, excuse me, I don't understand what you're saying. Instead of behaving like you've understood what the person says. Why do you do that? Dambaha cannot be what you are. You're ashamed of that. No, there's nothing wrong. But they will think ill of me. Nobody who has culture will think ill of you. An uncultured person may think ill of you. Why do you want that person? So you're free. But you will court people who are not cultured and then suffer. Dambaha, it's a show. The whole thing is a show. Demoniac people do that. Darbaha, arrogance. Arrogance means an assumed superiority. You take pride and you are lost in your status, in your power, in your achievement. Even in youth, you could be arrogant because you're youthful or wealth. It could be anything. That's why the Bhaja Govinda by Adi Shankaracharya, it says, Ma kuru dhana jana yavana garvam. Ma kuru, do not. Dhana, wealth. Jana, following. Yavana, youth. Garvam, arrogance. Don't take pride in these things. Dhana is wealth, because any time it will go. All these things. Dhana, jana is following. See, if you're in power, there will be 10 people walking behind you. The moment you lose your power, nobody will be around you. So anytime it can change. And yavana, youth. We take, you're arrogant when you're youthful. But you don't know. As some of you have already passed youth, come to adulthood, and from adulthood getting into old age, whole thing changes. The whole equation changes. But if you have spent time through your life developing divine qualities, no matter what age you are, you won't have this problem. You could be young, you could be old, you have that inner strength. Now you're going by external strength, which may not last. So that's what he's saying, Darbaha, an assumed superiority, which will not last. And then he says self-conceit, abhimanaha, an exaggerated opinion of oneself, being egoistic. So the ego functions in three ways. I am supreme, I alone exist, I am the doer. Three ways it expresses itself. So when you say, I am supreme, I'm worthy of adoration, adore me. You're not saying it, but you expect it. It's an expectation wherever you go. You want to be noticed. Why do people dress or overdress? You want to be noticed. We can't be simple. Wedding means, oh, which sari to wear. As though anybody cares. You'll be spending hours selecting the clothes and what is it? All the accessories. This should go, that should not go. All sorts of plans you have. For a wedding. For a party. No, I'm not saying be slovenly. Just be yourself. You are free. But if you subject yourself to want to be noticed, Abhimana, I am supreme. I should be noticed. Head should turn. Okay, then you pay the price for it. You'll be suffering. And the beauty is heads should turn, but the moment you walk, horribly dressed a girl. That's the comment you don't hear. You think they're smiling at you. He's trying to impress. There's a saying in English, when you try to make an impression, that's exactly the impression you make. When you try to make an impression, that's exactly the impression you make. Meaning, people can easily see you're trying to make an impression. So you really don't get what you want. But you feel superior. And then I alone exist. Self-importance. So suppose in the family they're all watching television and they're enjoying. And you come from office or you come from somewhere, you go straight to the television and change the channel. Can't you see you're blind? They're all watching. No, this is interesting. Wait. I alone exist. Nobody else exists. It could happen in a family. So that is another form of abhimana. And then I am the doer. I am the doer means you're conscious of whatever you do. You want acknowledgement of what you've done. Even a simple thing as cooking a meal or planning a holiday. You want people to acknowledge the kind of work you have put in. I am the doer. I'm important. So these are various ways by which the ego functions. Then he says, anger. What is anger? There can never be anger unless there are desires. Anger is nothing but desire interrupted. So a demoniac person has a lot of desires. And anger comes when some desire is interrupted. Then people ask, I have this problem with anger, how do I handle it? Please analyze what is the desire that has been disturbed. And you are a victim of desire. You can have desires, but why should the desire control you? You control the desire. If the desire controls you, then you are subject to anger, hatred, jealousy, greed, lust, a whole series of things. Because desire takes you into all these lanes. So one of them is anger. In fact, anything negative, any negative emotion, like I mentioned, anger, fear, envy, arrogance, all these negative emotions come from desire. Desire when it's not controlled. Desire per se is not wrong, but uncontrolled desire, that gives you the problem. So that is krodha and parushyam. Parushyam is harshness. Again, when you are suppressed, your desires, when you are frustrated, it manifests as being harsh. You'll be surprised sometimes, spiritual people, they are harsh, they could be harsh, because they have suppressed themselves so much that the expression that they have is harsh. You don't have to be harsh. But that comes because of suppression, repression, frustration. That's when you're harsh. Again, a demoniac quality. And the last is ajnana, ignorance. Ignorance of what? The truth, the reality. if you don't care for the reality, if you don't care for the truth, you are in ignorance. And that ignorance is a demoniac quality. So why 6 demoniac qualities and 26 divine qualities? He's saying it's very difficult to develop the divine qualities, but one demoniac quality is enough to destroy it. It's like putting a drop of lime in a pot of milk to spoil it all. One drop is enough. But to keep that pot of milk pure is not easy. That's why he's given only 6 qualities. We continue.
दैवी सम्पद्विमोक्षाय निबन्धाय सुरीमता माशु च सम्पदं दैवीम् अभिजातोऽसि पाण्डव.
The divine nature is deemed for liberation, the demoniac for bondage. Grieve not, you are born of divine nature, O Pandava. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, look, don't grieve. You are made of divine nature, and it is deemed for liberation. Liberation means the 100 mark. Remember the graph we talked about from 0 to 100. So when you pick up divine qualities, you are moving towards the 100 mark. The demoniac is deemed for bondage. You're going down. And you are a victim. When you follow the demoniac qualities, you become a victim of your own personality. And by becoming a victim, you can never be satisfied. You can never be happy. You can be the richest man in the world. Externally you could smile. Internally you're sad. Who was it? You've heard of Howard Hughes? How to teach you Bhagavad Gita, I don't know. Howard Hughes, you know. I'll put it on the screen, and I think I have a PowerPoint that will explain to you how. Here you are. 1905, 1976. One of the world's richest men. Mr. Hughes was best known as a movie magnate, aviation pioneer, and businessman. He had spent the last 20 years out of public eye, living as a recluse in hotel penthouses around the world. After years of neglect, the body of Howard Hughes was almost unrecognizable, and the FBI had to take fingerprints to identify it. Meaning, he led a miserable life. One of the richest men in the world. I'm happily talking about it because he doesn't belong to this country, number one, and he's gone long time. I dare not tell you what is going on, the present richest men. And it's up to you to find out. But it's a fact. We are only going by magazines and newspapers and all the smiles. But you have no idea what is going on internally. This is a classic example. So there is no guarantee by getting wealth, by getting power, by having status, that you're going to be happy. See, when you don't have it, you believe, wait, Bhagavad Gita is fine. In my case, it's different. I know how to handle that. Wait till you get there. There's a beautiful saying, I wonder if I have it. It's dependent on how you treat a person who does you no good. A true measure of a man. This is by Samuel Johnson. You've heard Samuel Johnson. The true measure of a man is how he treats someone who can do him absolutely no good. How do you treat your servants? Because in India we have this culture of staff. Even the ordinary middle class, lower middle class, everybody has servants. Somebody to come and help. How do you treat them? How do you treat your children? How do you treat your drivers? People go for party late into the night. The fellow has to sit in a basement. Don't even care whether the fellow's eaten, not eaten. What is his family? Nothing. There's no feeling for anybody who does you no good. After all, I'm paying him. That's the attitude. Suppose it was your own child. What is the treatment you would give? Now that doesn't mean you go overboard. But give them their due. That's the true measure of a man, is how he treats someone who can do him absolutely no good. So, bondage we're talking about. When you're bound by your wealth, you're bound by your power, you can never be happy. But it is the divine nature that will take you to something higher. Now, the problem is we believe we know. And I'm giving you another quote from Alvin Toffler. We got to be brave enough to stand up and say, yes, I've made these mistakes, or I don't know and I will learn. Alvin Toffler says, the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read or write, because we all can. Otherwise we won't be sitting here. But those who cannot learn, unlearn and relearn. The illiterate of the 21st century will be those who cannot learn, unlearn, relearn. There's no shyness, especially if you're you have come into adulthood. You believe, look, I've taken care of my children. I earn the money. I have taken care of them. How can I go wrong? Of course you can go wrong. Nobody is perfect. What is the shyness to accept? And especially if a younger person tells you you've done something wrong, what is the shyness? But we can't. We cannot accept it. Many people cannot. Those who can are on the right track. Because you're being normal. That's being a normal human. But if you can't accept your mistakes, then you don't progress. I have another thought. I'm looking for it. By John Maxwell. By John Maxwell, he says, a man must be big enough to admit his mistakes, smart enough to profit from them, and strong enough to correct them. Look at the thought, huh? Man means woman also, please. All the ladies are saying, all right, take notes. Everybody. It's just a common way of saying, human. Okay, a human. A human must be big enough to admit one's mistakes, smart enough to profit from them, and strong enough to correct them. See, that is the path to divinity. Let's take it up. Let's change our lives. Let's make it better for whose sake? For your own sake. So here you are. The divine nature is deep for liberation, demoniac for bondage. Grieve not, Arjuna. It's not Arjuna, it's all of us. Krishna is telling all of us, grieve not. The fact that you have stepped out of your normal routine and come and sat here. What have you come here for? To learn. Perhaps unlearn and relearn. So that in itself is an encouragement to all of us that we can improve and we should improve. We continue.
Dvau bhutasargau lokesmin daiva asura eva cha daivo vishtarashah proktah asuram partha me shrunu.
The two created beings in this world are the divine and demoniac. The divine has been described in detail. Hear from me, O Partha, the demoniac. In fact, from the 7th verse onwards, right up to the 15th, he's going to tell us all about the demoniac qualities, what all can happen. But here, some of you who are familiar with spiritual literature, you will wonder, how can he say two created beings? Because the three gunas, you heard of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. This is one of the biggest contributions Vedanta philosophy has made to the world. The analysis of every human being boils down to three gunas, three qualities. Gunas means qualities. What are they? Sattva, rajas, tamas. Do we have that? Sattva, rajas, tamas. So, it simply means A, B, C. Those who are not familiar, don't worry. But these are three mental temperaments. Just as, you'll pick up a piece of cloth and say, this is fine cloth because of its texture. A rough cloth because of its texture. You judge a piece of cloth by its texture. Similarly, we have mental textures, thoughts. So when the thoughts are fine, it's A quality. When the thoughts are not so good, it is B quality. When the thoughts are very low, it is C quality. Sattva is the highest, Rajas is mediocre, and Tamas is lowest. Now, why we said it's one of the greatest contributions, it's not meant only for Indians. It's for human beings across the globe. All human beings are a necessary combination of all three. Only a person who's hit the 100th mark goes beyond gunas. Till then, you will have three gunas. And each one is different from the other because of the combination of these three. How much of sattva do you have? How much of the fine thoughts do you have? How much of mediocre thoughts do you have? How much of low thoughts do you have? That is you. See, if you look at nature, there is no problem. You can understand nature because nature has a collective guna. All of nature has what we call collective guna. All roses will have thorn. There's no doubt. No lily will have a thorn. Easy. So the moment you see a rose, you've got to be careful. It has a thorn. Lily you can touch because you know it will never have a thorn. Impossible. There is no lily with a thorn. There is no rose without a thorn. No problem. Collective nature. Same with animals. All carnivores are ferocious. The moment you see a carnivore, you be careful. You know all snakes. The snake will wind around you. You know the nature of a snake. So immediately you recoil. You stay away. It is not safe. But if you see a lamb, if you see a cow, you see a goat, you go and touch it automatically. How cute, you will pat it. Because you know all cows are meek and mild. Even an elephant you would go as long as you know how to go near it. Because you know it will not attack. So it has a gentle nature. That is why you know how to relate to animals, you know how to relate to plants, you know how to deal with nature. You don't have a problem with nature. But in the human race, each one is different. No two persons are the same. Even identical twins are different. Why? Gunas are different. The combination of gunas are different. So you don't know whether you have a rose with thorns at home or you have a lily waiting for you there. You don't know. Today the person may be like a lily, tomorrow the person may have thorns. You have to understand the gunas. If you understand the gunas, you understand the person. And gunas are not easy unless you learn. Person has sattvic gunas. Now we are going to be studying the demoniac because there's plenty around. See, sattvic you don't have to worry, the higher guna, because they have those divine qualities. They will never harm you. But the demoniac can harm you. First of all, don't go home and start assessing. I learned today, you have this dambaha. You also have dharpaha. It's not to judge another. Christ said, judge not others. Resist not evil. Judge not others because you cannot. The only person you can judge is yourself. So start with yourself. You improve, your life will improve. So here he says, the divine has been described in detail. Hear from me, the demoniac.
Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha janana vidurasuraha na shaucham na pichacharaha na satyam teshu vidyate.
So I told you from the 7th to the 15th verse, we're talking about demoniac nature and conduct. The demoniac people do not know action from inaction. Also, neither purity or good conduct, nor truth is found in them. So what is this? Asuraha janaha na viduhu. They do not know. Pravrittim, action. Action means what ought to be done. And nivrittim, what ought not to be done. I don't know if some of you would have heard about the famous play, a tragedy by Shakespeare, King Lear. Now King Lear had 3 daughters, Goneril, Regan and Cordelia. And on his 80th birthday, he was dividing the kingdom between the 3 daughters. And he asked in an open court that, how much do you love your father? He asked the daughters. So Goneril and Regan, who are not the real daughters, who really didn't care for the father, they professed that they loved the father so much that they would do anything. They went into poetry about their love for the father. The man fell for it completely. We're talking about what ought to be done, what ought not to be done. You don't understand. On what basis are you deciding? And the 3rd daughter, who was honest, who was straightforward, she said, Father, I have a divided loyalty. So he was shocked when he said, what is a divided loyalty? He says, right now I am unmarried, so all my loyalties are with you. But when I get married, my loyalties will be divided. He did not like what he heard, and of course the play, I'm just giving you briefly, but the story goes that he banished her. And later on, the suitors were there for her at the court, and the King of France married her and took her away. But that apart, when he started living with the daughters, whom he divided England between the 2 daughters, because he banished the 3rd daughter. And the daughters, one by one, started complaining about the father. Hey, I can't take care of him, you take care of him. One girl is sending to the other sister. And slowly they started withdrawing all the facilities that were supposed to be given to him, till he was on the streets. Now, that big show that they made, he did not know what ought to be done, what ought not to be done. King Lear. Similarly, how are we functioning with our families? We don't know. What ought to be done, what ought not to be done. It's a demoniac quality. So unless you develop divinity and clarity, you won't know how to function in the world. This is what Gita is saying. So don't look at me like that. I'm only interpreting what they're saying. The demoniac people do not know action from inaction. What ought to be done, what ought not to be done. Na shaucham. Na shaucham, impurity stains your thought, word and deed. So your conduct, behavior is not right. It's not pure. That's what he needs. And then na acharaha. Acharaha, when you are arrogant, there's no purity, there's no good conduct. Nor truth, there's no conviction. Now you've got to act on conviction, on ideals, a proper direction. Then you would be right. But if you don't have a direction, like India didn't have a direction, he just went by what they said, something superficial, and you fall for that. Now you don't know, when you don't have what you have now, how will you be treated? That insight you don't have. And then you judge by superficiality. That is how a demoniac person behaves. Goes by superficiality and then does not know what to do and when to do it, and does and avoids what he's supposed to do. That is the quality of the demonic. And he continues.
Asatyam pratishtham te jagadahuraniishwaram aparaspara sambhutam kimanyat kama haitukam.
They say, the demoniac people, they say, the world is without reality, without foundation, without Lord, born of mutual union caused by lust. What else? See, the Asuric intellect perceives and makes shallow, superficial conclusions. some fellows will say, what Bhagavad Gita you fellows are going and studying? Huh? What is there? There is only this world life. Nothing more. Which God? Where God? What reality? Don't you see they are living here and that's it. Live life fully. Forget God. What is he? He's in the temple. Is he doing it? You're going and asking. Does he give you anything? Simply you people are going. They will talk like that. Now I am not saying you go to temple, ask and you get everything. I am not saying the other thing. But how an asuric person would perceive and make shallow, superficial conclusions. There's no validity in their statements. So what do they say is, the world has no reality. There's nothing beyond this world. Just this world. Nothing more. They don't even think, from where did you come? Where are you going? Do you know? Yet they would conclude, there is no reality. Then there is no pratishtha, no foundation. There is no reality, there is no foundation. There is no Lord. How does the sun rise every morning and set every evening? Who's setting the time? Don't know. You put a seed into the earth and it sprouts into a sapling and becomes a tree and yields fruits. Who's doing it? Don't know. Yet we say, there is no Lord, there is no controller. Right now you're seeing, you're hearing. You know, there are several million operations in the retina of your eye. I wish I had a doctor here to support what I'm saying. In the retina of your eye, to register sight. In your retina. Who is managing those million operations? Don't know. Your digestive system is functioning, your circulatory system is functioning. All sorts of things are going on within you as you sit here. Who is helping you? Don't know. Yet they say, there is no Lord. There is nothing. That's what Asuric people say. And how is this world created? Two people get together, produce. That's all. It's caused by lust. Nothing more. This is how they conclude. See, the wise people, they are able to see there is a reality. There is something beyond this known world. And there is a foundation. How can the whole thing exist? There's got to be a foundation, supporter. Something that supports all the laws, all that is functioning in this world. There's got to be something. We may not know it. And then these laws are functioning meticulously. There's got to be a controller. So they posit something and work towards it till they find it. A famous Christian mystic, Joel Goldsmith, he says, of course, initially you got to have faith. There is no proof of all these things. It's a fact. But without faith, you can't start anything in life. So Joel Goldsmith says, faith is a belief in a thing I do not know until I come to know what I believe in. So you begin with faith, but you don't end there. You start with that faith till you discover the truth. That is how a wise person would function. Whereas a demonic person discounts the whole thing and says there is nothing. It's just by mutual union caused by lust. That is the world, nothing else. They conclude erroneously that there is nothing more in this world. We continue.
एतां दृष्टिमवष्टभ्य नष्टात्मानोऽल्पबुद्धयः प्रभवन्त्युग्रकर्माणः क्षयाय जगतो हिताः.
Holding this view, the ruined souls of small intellect, of fierce deeds, come forth as enemies for the destruction of the world. So, the cause of the problems in the world, we have all sorts of problems in the world. Why? It's caused by alpa buddhaya. It's caused by small intellect or lack of thinking. It could happen in your family. It can happen in your society, in your community, in the country, even at the international level. When people don't apply their intellects, all sorts of problems can arise. But the problem is, how do we communicate to people? How do they realize that we are not living up to the dignity of human beings? We call ourselves civilized. We're supposed to be civilized people. And what sort of disruption is going on in society? What sort of problems? Who has created? Human beings have created. All other creatures are living peacefully on this planet except the human race. And we call ourselves civilized. So one aspect in our lives is completely neglected. That is the problem. We have grown externally, materially we have grown. The world has advanced, no doubt. Where has it advanced? It has advanced materially. We've got comforts. You're sitting here, you've got a phone. There was a time when there was a phone in the house. If you're not in the home, you cannot contact anybody. Now you've got your phone in the pocket. That is why we have to remind, please switch off your phone, please switch off your phone. We're constantly reminding you. The convenience you have, you can be contacted anywhere. How has it come about? Because of civilization, the improvement in the world outside. But the world inside has not been looked into. That's what we're trying to do in this classroom. We're trying to look within. We're not saying deny the world. The world is meant for human beings to enjoy. That is why it has improved so much. But humans can be living in the midst of all these amenities and facilities and be miserable. It's possible. So holding this view, alpa buddhi, without any thinking, what is the view? That there is nothing in this world. There's no reality, there's no controller, nothing. It's just mutual lust. That's all there is. Nothing more than that. Holding that view ruins souls of small intellect. They don't use the intellect. Fierce deeds. They can do anything to harm anybody. They won't hesitate. Such people come forth as enemies for the destruction of the world because they don't care for one and all. They don't care for the entire world, just themselves and their interests. So they could destroy others for their own interests.
Kamamashritya dushpuram dambhamanamadhanvitaha mohat grihitva sadgrahan pravartante shuchivrataha.
Abiding in insatiable desire, overpowered by hypocrisy, pride and arrogance, gripped by evil ideas through delusion, they work with impure resolve. So what he's saying here is, remember we said desire is not the problem, but insatiable desire, uncontrolled desire, that is the problem. Oh, but what will happen if you have too many desires? You will be overpowered, anvitaha, overpowered by what? Dambhaha, pretense. Your life is one big pretense. Manaha, show of superiority. Madaha, arrogance towards those who are less fortunate. And asadgrahan mohat, 24 hours you'll be thinking negative in this confusion, in this delusion that you are something great. So these are the qualities. We're talking about demoniac qualities. So you've got to watch out. Let's not have it. If you have it, correct it. No problem. And then he says, such people act with selfish intention. They work with impure resolve. So when you have these negative qualities, all your actions speak of that negative qualities. You are what you think. It's not what you do that matters, but why you do it, how you do it. We believe, oh, if we do charity, everything will be fine. Every Friday I will do some charity, every Sunday I will feed few people. These are actions, no doubt, good actions. But what is more important is what is going on within you. What sort of intention do you have? I'll quickly give you an example. It's not what you do that makes it right or wrong. You can never answer a question, is action good or bad? You cannot answer. I'll give you an example. A man puts a knife into another man's body. Mark my words. A man puts a knife into another man's body, as a result of which the other man dies. Is this action good or bad? Can't tell. Some are saying bad. Huh? Suppose it was a surgeon. The operation was unsuccessful. It's not his fault. He did it with all good intention. He put the knife into the other man's body, but the man died. It's still a noble action. But if it is a murderer, selfish action, put the knife to rob the fellow, it's a terrible action. So what I'm trying to prove is, you can never judge an action per se. I'm giving an extreme example. But you should know what is the intention. One can smile and still be a villain. Hamlet, Shakespeare. One can smile, don't go by external smiles. But that doesn't mean one person smiles, hey, that fellow's a villain. Don't go to the opposite side. Then people will come and complain to us, what have you taught? Do you have that? One may smile and yet be a villain. Oh, villain, smiling, damn villain, my tables. That one may smile and be a villain. Shakespeare. So don't go by external manifestation. You've got to be careful. And it's not easy to know the intention. You must be wise, you must have knowledge, then you have the capacity to X-ray through another. See, an adult can understand a child. This child is so naughty, see how he's behaving. You can understand a child because you're an adult. You have to have grown to a higher dimension to understand a person. But two children cannot understand each other. The parent has to come and intervene and say, no, don't fight. Parents adults have to come, because adult knows who's doing the wrong thing, who's doing the right thing. But two children cannot. Similarly, as adults, unless you grow into a higher dimension, you cannot understand your own people. You can't understand. Because it's like two children, they can't understand each other. So what knowledge does is, it puts you into a higher growth, higher dimension. As a result of your growth, inner growth, you will be able to understand the intention of another. But don't think by listening 4 sessions, I've got knowledge of Gita, now I know how to, analyze others. Don't try. It's just an example. You will have to spend months, perhaps years of study to understand the intention of another. But there is a way, that's all we're saying. We'll meet tomorrow.